Jordan Tartans. My name is Thomas Edison Jordan Jr. I'm the 28th great grandson of Jourdain de Courcy. I'm going to tell you about the Tartans of the clan Jordan. I've had many members of the family ask me which tartan they should wear. Many of them identify with the Irish side of the family, a lot of them with the Scottish side of the family. Although often the Jordans are referred to in history books as Anglo-Norman. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Celtic side of the family and what tartans might be appropriate, so that you can spin the wheel and decide which tartan pattern you prefer. We're going to be looking at Ireland, Scotland, and Wales for our tartan patterns for the family Jordan. Now, all information is provided by me. No artificial intelligence was used. I don't know how much of my intelligence is natural and what is artificial at this point in time. Anyway. Now, we know that the Celtic tribes wove checkered fabrics. The Gaelic word for that was tartan, where we derive the word tartan. There's examples that exist as far back as the 3rd century of some Scottish textiles, but imagine how difficult it is to preserve woolen textiles over the centuries. Best place to find those is in the frozen ice or in bogs where it's kept from oxygen and oxidation. Now, over time, regional patterns developed and clan patterns developed beginning by the 16th century of the Common Era. Now, according to the Scottish Tartan Museum, the word fellabeg is an anglicized spelling of the Gaelic word fellabeg, which means a little wrap. It refers to the bottom half of the belted great tartan kilts. Now, the fellabeg was worn indefinitely up until the 18th century, when its use declined by the 1790s, when people started wearing more tailored kilts, although it was worn as late as the 1820s with the great tartans. In 1800, there were about 90 to 100 registered tartan patterns. Today, there are over 7,000 registered patterns. Beginning around 2000, even Welsh tartan patterns began to be registered. So we've got to decide which branch of the family we're going to follow to pick out our tartan color. Now, we know that Sir Jourdain de Courcy was the first to use that name Jordan. So we're going to look for some Jordan tartans. But we're also going to follow our other Celtic roots, because if we follow down our maternal Gaelic ancestors, we can see that we have family members from Ulster, the Irish Republic, and Scotland, and Wales. Although back in those days, they weren't labeled with those country names. So let's look at Éire. The Jordans invaded Éire in the 12th century. The Irish Celtic name for Jordan is Meath. Now, they're often described as Anglo-Norman, but in fact, Jourdain de Courcy was a Frank who held fiefdoms in Normandy and had invaded England along with William the Conqueror in 1066. And as a result, my family had been awarded lands, and they kept their Norman baronies and were awarded more baronies in England. Now, there was no clan tartan because they were Franks. and they had invaded England. But eventually, Sir Jourdain de Courcy went to find his fortune because he did not inherit the barony, and he went and invaded Ireland along with his brother, Jourdain de Exeter. They had taken the name Jordan based on the exploits of their uncle and father, who had fought in the Crusades. And the coat of arms shows a rampant lion, or a fighting lion, surrounded by crosses showing the battles of the Crusades, with the family motto, Percussa resurgo, though beaten down I arise. So Jourdain de Courcy went with his brother. He fought and eventually built a castle in County Meath, known as Castelhaine-Jourdain. All that remained now is the remains of the Tower House. He was killed in 1197 while fighting with his brother in Ulster Provence. And as a result, his descendants returned and remained in England, while his brother Jourdain de Exeter's family remained in Ulster Province, where he was the conquering lord, and his branch of descendants continue there. Now, the Irish don't have tartans for clans, they have tartans for counties. So what we see here is County Meath, which would represent Jourdain de Courcy, and Ulster Province, which would represent the Jourdain de Exeter branch, those who continue to live in Northern Ireland now with the name Jordan, would usually wear this tartan. So we Jordans in America of the Jourdain de Courcy branch are theoretically entitled to wear the County Meath tartan, but we have bad memories since our 28th great-grandfather was killed by his own retainer in battle, period. So what other family members do we have besides Jordans? Well, Jean Shagog immigrated from Monaghan in Ulster to America, along with his wife, Eleanor Daring, who was born and raised in Dublin. They're my fifth great-grandparents. So that brings us once again to, we could wear the Ulster Provence tartan, or we could wear the tartan of County Dublin. Now the Ulster Provence, you'll see, is more yellow and orange. That is because, if you recall, this still belongs to the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And they still honor William of Orange with their Orange Day parades and their Orange Men organizations. Whereas in the south, green's the color, and so we see County Dublin, predominantly a green, but with some hints of orange in there. What other Irish clans do we have tartan colors for? Well, William Benjamin Kane, in 1765, immigrated to America from Donegal. He's my sixth great-grandfather. So we see here the Kane tartan. Now, let's step across the Irish Sea and look at our ancestors from Alba. So we have basically four families from Scotland. We have the Guthries, the Logans, the Glens, and the Stewarts. Jane Stewart came from Edinburgh, whereas the Guthries, Logans, and Glens were all from the Ayrshire side of the country. Now, John Guthrie, 1682, is my seventh great-grandfather. He immigrated from Ayrshire. Now, the Guthries were a family who had been heralds to the king and In 1299, Laird Guthrie was sent to France as an envoy to try to convince William Wallace to return back to Scotland to have negotiations with William the Bruce and Edward Longshanks. He was successful and convinced Wallace to return, and they landed at Montrose. It didn't turn out too well for William Wallace, as you recall. Eventually, Guthrie Castle, which you see pictured here, was purchased by the De la Pena family in 1984. We see 3 tartans for the Guthrie clan. We see the ancient colors, the more modern colors, and the more muted battle colors. These would also be used in the hunt because they tended to be more muted and camouflage for the game. One of our famous American Guthries was Arlo Guthrie, and his father, folk singer Woody Guthrie, and newscaster Savannah Guthrie. We've also got the Logan clan that we could wear our tartan, thanks to George Logan, 1750. Now he immigrated from Kilwinning in Ayrshire. He's my 8th great-grandfather. See pictured here, a Victorian era romanticized picture from the clans of the Scottish Highlands of a Logan wearing his tartan. Now, there's 2 main branches to the Logan family. There's the Grugar and the Ayrshire. Now, the Ayrshire Logans are the ones that we're descended from, known as the Logans of that ilk. They were the first to register the Logan arms in the court of Lord Lyon, which is where you register all the coats of arms in Scotland. Now today, both Clan Logan and Clan MacLennan share the same tartan. There are earlier tartans that were attributed to Logan, one known as the Skene tartan, sometimes also called the Rose tartan. And the official state tartan of Utah is based on the Logan tartan in respect for Ephraim Logan, who was considered the first American of Scottish descent who was famous in Utah. We've also got James Andrew Glenn, a different tartan pattern. 1740 from Kilwinning in Ayrshire, my 8th great-grandfather. Now, there were several Glen patterns because Glen simply means a valley in Scottish. Now, according to Thomas Allen Glen, the Lordship of Glen, which consists of Bar, Gate Flat, Lint Hills, Brigand, and other lands, had been granted by King David I to Walter the Stewart, but then later the Lordship of the Glen passed on to the Glen family by marriage to the Stewart family. And so the Glen surname comes from the Lordship of Glen in Renfrewshire. So when looking for tartans for Glen, be very careful that you don't pick the wrong Glen because there are multiple registered ones out there. Now we come to the Stewarts. A lot of tartans for the Stewarts because the Stewarts were the kings of Scotland. Although after the union with England, those Stewarts who migrated south and remained in England tended to spell the name not S-T-E-W-A-R-T, but S-T-U-A-R-T. So Jane Stewart, 1686, immigrated from Edinburgh. She's my 7th great-grandmother. There are multiple Stewart tartans. Not just the 2 we see here, but these other 6. There are multiple, depending on the activity. There'd be hunting tartan, formal dress tartan, military regiment tartan. Because remember, the Stewarts were the kings, so the Royal Stewart tartan is one of the official tartans for the military. Now, it wasn't just the Irish and the Scots that we can look to for some tartan patterns, but our Celtic cousins, the Welsh, also wove such patterns, although recently they've only begun to be registered since about 2000. But we know Benjamin Roberts, 1740, immigrated from Wales. He's my 6th great-grandfather. And this is the pattern of the Roberts of Wales tartan. Now, according to Loch Carron of Scotland, in Scotland the tartans are woven with an equal warp and weft proportion, gives it kind of a square or box design, whereas the Welsh tartans are woven with a different proportion that makes them more rectangular and striped. Another interesting thing is there is no K in Welsh, so kilt is spelled C-I-L-T. So in addition to family tartans, there are also affiliation tartans. Certain civilian organizations, military regiments, all have identified tartans. For example, you've mentioned the Royal Stewart tartan. I am a brother of the Knights of St. Andrew, of the ancient accepted Scottish Rite, and as our uniform tartan for kilts, we wear the Royal Stewart tartan. Here you see spelled in the English style. Now, whenever military units have tartans done, their pleats are a little different. They're called a military box style, where they pleat to the stripe, or what's called a set. They tend to make deeper pleats. They tend to hold form much better. But they take up more wool. Now, a simple tartan may take 5 pounds of wool, but some of the complex pleated military box can take up to 8 pounds of wool when you use the really good heavy fabric. So now you know some of the tartans that you can select as a member of our Jordan family. If you don't have an organizational tartan or military tartan to affiliate yourself, pick one of our family tartans, spin the wheel, find which one you're going to wear, have a different one for every day of the week. It's fun for all. And let me just leave you with some parting words of wisdom. Éire go bra, alba go brat. Thank you.